Good morning, everyone. So I wanted to bring everybody up to speed here. I have completed the revised Football Time Full Simulator charts, and they are available free. You can click the link in the description box below and grab the updated charts. So for those who don't know, years ago I completed a Football Time Full Simulator that uses D66 range of numbers. So you can play your Football Time games in full snap-to-snap games with static special teams. But these charts have been updated, and the reason I'm making them available here is on the channel when I play my complete games. For instance, as I'm doing my Canadian Football League 2026 play-along, there are going to be games coming up, and I'm going to want to play out complete football games, because they're going to become incredibly interesting games. And then when we get to the playoffs and the Grey Cup, I'm going to want to play out those games complete. So it was important that when I play the full simulator on the channel, that people know what I'm using, right? But also, they're going to see me with the charts physically in front of me. And they're going to want, everyone's going to say, where did you get those? How can I get those? Well, so of course, I'm making them available here so you can print them out and use them, or at least follow along. So anyway, they have been slightly changed and updated, and I will be using these for lots of my Football Time games. So whether I'm playing my Big Country Football League, I'm in the 1952 season, and I'll be using these charts when I get to the playoffs and for the championship. My Johnny Unitas replay of his entire career, when there's games that I want to play out full between Johnny Unitas and, say, the New York Giants, 1957, Jimmy Brown or whatever, I'm going to be using these charts for full games. So click the link below. It'll take you right into this folder, Football Time Full Simulator Charts, and they're right here. Let's take a look at them. So they have, there's been revised rules. So you're going to want to read this because there's been some key changes to the football simulator. One, there's now a mandatory D66 touchdown check for all returns. So every time you do a kick return, punt return, or turnover return, a rouge return for Canadian football, you must roll the D66 again. If you roll a 66, they take it back to the house. If they roll 11, it's a fumble loss back. So this has to happen on all kicks and interceptions now. Also, I've put in an entire paragraph pertaining to Canadian football adjustments. So on these charts, when there's a kick, when you check the kickoff, it's a net. So for instance, an A team always returns the ball out to the 31. Well, again, it's static. We don't make any, we roll for our mandatory touchdown / fumble check, and that's it. That's where that team, the A team in this game, always is going to have pretty good field position with a chance to return it for a touchdown or fumble it away. That's going to be true across the board. But in Canadian ball, because of the size of the field, we're going to add 10 to this. So an A team in Canadian ball, we get the ball to 41. The B team, we get the ball to 38, 35, right? This accounts for roughly, again, in Canadian ball, between 5 to 10 yards is the difference when they kick off the ball. You're generally fielding the ball between the 7 and the 12-yard line, which means you're getting the ball on average about 10 yards more than pro football. And so you just want to add 10 to the kick spot for those static checks. Okay. Next, all punt net, which put the ball in the end zone up to 15 yards deep. And I'm limiting it, although pre-26 or pre-27 end zones are 20 yards deep, but I'm going to limit it to 15 because this will cover pre-2027, and it'll also cover post-2027, as the end zones will be 15 yards deep. So if a punt lands inside the end zone up to 15 yards deep, you will be required to make a rouge check, a roll of D6. An odd result means the punting team scored a rouge. We go on to the opposing, we go on to the rest of the game. If an even result comes up, that means the return man escaped the end zone and will be down at the 9-yard line. Now, you're free to come up with if you don't like static numbers, folks, you're free to use your own kick return charts or whatever, or your own rules for this. But I use static results for almost all of my football games. And don't forget the mandatory TD check to see if they take that punt into the end zone back for a touchdown. Also, the big one is add 1 yard to all run results in Canadian ball, right? Canadian football, we've got that We've got that mandatory 1 yard zone at the line of scrimmage. It generally buys the Canadian game on average about an extra yard when you're running the ball. And so for more accurate run results, we want to add 1 to all Canadian runs. Before 2026, all missed field goals must be checked for a rouge as well. On a 1d6, an odd indicates a single scored for the field goal kicking team if they miss the field goal. An even result indicates the field goal is returned safely out to the 6-yard line. Mandatory TD check. Canadian teams cannot punt inside the defense's 25 or closer. Again, in real life, of course they can. They can choose to punt anytime they want. But for the sake of my rules, the worst team in the league can punt, gets a 30 net. So remember, this is net. This would be the punt and the return. So A teams will always get a net punt of 42. So again, remember, A teams, we're going to see their value in special teams through the course of a season. And again, you're only going to be an A when you match up against other teams. So an A team is not always an A team. They're going to match up and sometimes be a C, sometimes a D, whatever. So remember, static special teams won't change in the game, but they could change from week to week depending on their opponent's grade, right? Remember, this is the game grade. All right, anyway, long story short, if I punt the ball from, say, the 26, I'm going to put the ball 4 yards deep if I'm an F team, forcing you to return it out of the end zone. If I'm at the 42 and I punt from the 26, you see my point. Okay, so I got to limit. If not, you've got to have a way to make sure the F teams can pin you in the end zone. But it's not ridiculous that they're punting from the 20 or the 15. They wouldn't. They would kick a field goal. And the reason it's important is we have a choice. Once you're at the 30 or closer, you can try to kick a field goal. So you want to give a Canadian coach a chance between the 30 and the 26 to choose to force you into deep territory or even score a rouge on a cheap attempt, right? So if you don't want to try to kick the field goal. But again, most coaches are going to go for the field goal or go for it, depending on the situation. In the Canadian game, you're probably going to go for it if you're at the 26 or something, right? Okay. But you need to have that option. And so it'd be pointless to give them a chance to kick from any distance, right? Okay. So this is probably, this last bit is somewhat of an extraneous rule, but I think we need to clarify it for those who would say, wait a minute, would I punt from the 19? Right? No, of course you wouldn't, right? So, okay. And then I just go over what the results mean, the legend on the charts, and then, of course, remind you that you read how you read the 11 to 66 numbers. All right. The B charts, it doesn't matter what order the charts are in. You're going to print them out. I would print them out and have every chart independently out. So I'm going to print these I'm going to print every page out independently on its own sheet. And so when I'm playing two teams, I'll just have the B charts in front of me and the D charts in front of me. So you can lay them out in front of you. So remember, this is a solitaire automated game. You down and distance is irrelevant. You just roll the dice and you see what the team calls. All right. There's a chance for a turnover or a touchdown. And then, of course, you'll check however you want to determine TDs and turnovers is your business. But I do provide optional charts. So we got the B charts, the C charts, and the special teams chart, by the way, is the same on every sheet. It's just I highlight, if you're playing the B team and you're going to punt, I highlight it so you can go, oh, okay, we punt 38 booms. It's just a reminder of what your B team does here. Okay, and then I put the legend and the how to read the results on every chart. So C team, again, here, A team here, D team here. And for those who have these charts in other books, there has been a change to the F charts. So the F charts used to have 2 turnover instances. And I have since made a decision as I was tweaking and revising and playing the games that I decided I'm going to remove that second chance. I want every team to have an even chance at turnovers and TDs. However, they have a pretty blistering sack here. And I also slightly increased their best pass. And of course, I think I increased the D chart's best pass as well. And let's see, and on the B charts, nope, that's it. Okay, so there's only been 2 tweaks to these charts. The The D's best pass is up a couple of yards. F's best pass is up a couple of yards. And I removed that second turnover instance, right? Okay. And the reason I did this was it jives with the possession game. In most of the football time games, every team, despite their column, has only one chance of a turnover, right? So I want to keep that honest here too. And remember, just because they're limited to a 15-yard pass doesn't mean they won't throw 40-yard bombs and 30, because that when you hit that TD, you can hit that TD anywhere on the field, and it could turn out to be a touchdown pass. So that is not the longest pass they could possibly throw for a touchdown. It's just the longest pass that they're going to get. So F is it's not a great chart, right? You obviously don't want to be an F offense. Okay, or an F special team. Okay. And then I have an optional chart. So when you run the ball, and when a team runs and it says 0 run, you can automatically roll a third die. It'll tell you who's carrying the ball. If it's a catch, you can automatically roll that third die. It'll tell you who's making the catch. If there's a sack or a fumble, you can roll a third die to find out who made the sack or the fumble, fumble recoveries, and who picks off passes. Okay. So that's entirely optional. You can have your own. You can do this your own way. You can have your own sequence. But I always provide a way for you to find out who had that 10-yard catch. You can just glance down at the third die and see, oh, the flanker caught that ball. So again, I don't account for the differences between Canadian positions and the pro game, because I play the pro 99% of the time, and I play the 19. I generally play from the 1940s to the 1970s, 80s, and so I'd stick with the generally two-back offense, the old XYZ receiving core. ABH are your receivers in your slot. So I make that known here. So if you're playing the Canadian game, you want to have your own targeting, slot backs, wide receivers. But you can certainly see the H as the slot back. You can certainly see the Y is, instead of a tight end, a slot back. So, and the fullback could easily be a wide receiver or slot back. So you just substitute for your own sport. And then last but not least, I always have an optional touchdown TD check. So when I roll that TD, well, I don't know, is it a run or a pass? It doesn't say, right? Because we want to keep this open so we can have big runs and we can have big passes. So let's say I'm on the D charts, I roll the die, it's 3rd and 2, and I roll a 66 touchdown. I come down here, I check my third D6, and it says 4, drop back pass to the Y, that's the tight end, touchdown. Had it been a turnover, I roll the dice, and it come down here and it says drop back pass to the tight end, picked off by the free safety. So it even tells you over here. It was a drop back pass looking for the post, and the free safety in the deep middle of the field stepped in front of it, picked it off. But again, you don't have to use these finders here. You can use these finders, or you can use your own. That's why all of these charts are optional. Again, I like to roll D66 with my third die, and I'm going to have all the data at my fingertips, and I don't mind if it's somewhat restricted. This is built, I want people to know, my touchdown turnover is built based on about 30 years of pro football. So in other words, you saw crossbuck runs in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. Of course, crossbucks are a particular type of run. You could substitute trap play or line plunge or dive or belly, whatever the hell you want to call it. But a crossbuck was a pretty popular two-back system run. For the crossbuck to be, you generally need two backs in the backfield, or you're going to need a H-back who puts himself in motion and parks himself in a position to be a potential run threat. So, and then the wide outside run. So again, you don't have to follow these. You can do your own thing. You can use fast action cards or whatever. But the point is, I will be playing, when I play my full sims on my channel, it will be my games, because I invented them, because that's my taste and that's how I like to play automated solitaire. I don't want to mess around, play calling, etc., etc. And I like to watch and see what happens. I like to play to find out. I don't want to, so of course, if you're playing the 1972 Dolphins and you use my game, depending on the chart they're on, the Dolphins are probably going to pass and run in equal sum, which we all know was complete hogwash. The Dolphins probably passed on average about 15 times a game, maybe more. But the Dolphins are an extreme example of a team that ran the ball 3 out of 4 times, or whatever. So yeah, you're not going to get traditional play calling based on era or team, and that's just the way it is. But you should get at least a fun way to see the A-rated Dolphins against the C-rated Patriots or whatever, and you're going to have at least opportunity to play those out. My games, again, because they're automated solitaire and I want the results to come up snap, snap, I am not concerned about down and distance. If I have a minus 3-yard run on a 3rd and 15, well, that can easily be explained. They handed the ball off on a draw trying to set up the punt, or the quarterback was flushed from the pocket and was tackled for a loss of 3. So you can see this as a sack depending on the era. So I make narrative sense of whatever comes up in my mind's eye. And so again, I don't call games. I watch games. And as I watch games, I make sense of the results. So, I mean, I've had some viewers and subscribers get frustrated that there are games that I play that don't account for down and distance. That's because they don't realize that I'm playing to find out, and I'm the witness. I'm the commentator. I'm creating or witnessing the narrative as it happens. I'm not the decider of why a quarterback run. Why does a team choose to run the ball on 3rd and 7? Well, I can come up with a legitimate reason why it turns out on the box score to be a run. And where does this come from? Right? Where does this idea come from? Well, this idea comes from game logs. And for anybody out there who's ever read football game logs, and I read football game logs for every football game. So when I don't get a chance to watch my Raiders play on a Sunday, I go to the NFL after the game's over and I click on the game logs, and the game logs just say Raiders 1st and 10, own 42, run 6 yards, Kaufman. 2nd and 4 at their own 36, Raiders run, Howie, 2 yards. And that's it. It doesn't give context. It just tells you where they were at and what the result was and who touched the ball and who made the tackle or the fumble recovery, whatever. Game logs never tell you the context. So when you see a 3rd and 17, 1984 San Francisco 49ers 3rd and 17, and it says, from their own, 22, it says run Montana 4 yards. They didn't call Montana's number. Montana was forced to run and ran for 4 yards. So I know exactly what happened when I see that. They might have called a quarterback draw on 3rd and 17. I doubt it, but you see my point. There is no context in game logs. So when you're rolling these up, you're rolling up in a way a game log. You're literally rolling up a game log. Now when you read through that back, you can imagine what a 3rd and 17 run for 4 was. Why would they have called a run there? They didn't maybe call a run, unless they were just trying to punt the ball away. So that's where this idea comes from, right? Okay. I spent more time reading game logs in my life than I did reading, than reading just box scores, because game logs to me were that was the truth of what went down in the game. So when Brian over at Clark and Addison was remastering my Flash Football, Phil General Football, and he was playing out a 1970s game, and he played out, I can't remember what it was, and there were a lot of runs, and I could just tell, because again, Brian, is accustomed to modern football. I think the idea that playing 1970 teams are going to run a lot, or they should run a lot, because that's what they did well. And anyway, long story short, I think there was a game where he was feeling compelled to run all the time, and he ran. And it came out, I thought, remarkably accurate. And I could just tell from his tone of voice in the video that I think he wasn't certain whether this looked good or bad. I then pulled up the real life game that he was playing, and I sent him the link to the actual game log. And in that game, the San Diego Chargers ran the ball on a drive 12 straight times. They ran. And we're talking about the San Diego Chargers, 1970. I think they had Dan Fouts. And they had a drive that was 12 straight runs. And I don't think people understand just how predictable football was and how safe teams would play at times. And that's why the 70s, I've said before, the 60s and the 70s in the NFL, for a big portion of both those decades, it was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It was fairly predictable, and it was pretty, I won't say boring, but it could be very safe and reliable football. And a team like Dolphins in 72, of course they're going to run because you can't stop them. The Dolphins, why would they do anything else? You've got to stop us. And if you can't stop us, we're just going to pound the rock. So in flash football, it was designed, when you get the 72 teams and you look at the 72 Dolphins, you say, holy shit, these guys are efficient running. Why would I do anything else? Exactly. Why would you do anything else? Run the ball. And you're only going to pass when you really are kind of in need to, right? That's field general football. That's flash football in a nutshell. But in that game, it is a game in which you're supposed to be the quarterback calling the plays based on the opponent you're facing, down and distance, situation in the game, etc. So you're in control of that play call as the quarterback of that huddle. These other games that I've matured into as I've come back to gaming, and I don't want to interfere, and I don't want to be the guy calling plays, and I don't want to be rolling a play call table, right? Grid Zone had the sweetest solo play calling because you had to call plays in Grid Zone. You had to call offensive play, you had to call a defensive play. Grid Zone had the sweetest, simplest solo play calling. You just roll 2d6, and one is going to tell you what the offense is doing, the other is telling you. It doesn't matter what down and distance is. It's abstract. And that experience, although it required a play call for offense and defense, that experience was so smooth, and ultimately it was automated, so you're out of the equation. I skipped a step and just go, with many of my games, I skip a step and just go straight to result. So we're looking at, so at the end of your game, if you chart it on a table with a field and you just play the game out and move the ball around the field, right, you're going to get your results. You're going to, if you actually write it down in a game log, at the end of the game, you're going to have a game log identical to all NFL game logs, right? It's going to say Denver Broncos, 1st and 10, own 14, Elway, 2-yard run. That's it. And it might have in parentheses who made the tackle. In the NFL, it'll say who made the tackle, right? But if you do that in the game log, you're going to say, wait a minute, why would they run Elway on first down? They didn't. Elway, they probably called a play that Elway had to, or it was a botched handoff, and Elway had no choice but to turn around and run upfield for 2 yards. So again, I've had subscribers and viewers who can't grasp the concept of what I'm doing when I'm rolling the dice. They literally think I'm playing Stratomatic. I'm not, right? I'm not playing Outlaw. I'm not playing Stratomatic. I'm not playing second season. I'm not playing traditional tabletop head-to-head football games and trying to make them solo. I'm playing solo games that are designed to be automated solo games. And so I don't apologize for those things, right? I am the commentator, and I'm watching two teams slug it out. And on a 3rd and 12, when it's obvious passing situation, I roll a -2 run. I know exactly in my mind's eye, based on the context. Oh, they're setting. They don't want to mess up here. They want to kick a field goal. They happen to run the ball, trying to position it. They lose 2 yards, but they're on the left hash, and they get a chance to kick the tying field goal. It's all contextual, people. All contextual. So anyway, I will put a link to get these charts. My advice is you don't print them back to back. Print them out on single pages. And that way you can just set out the chart you need for each team when you play out the full game. And these are completely up to date. Are they better than the ones that are in the old Football Time Complete, Football Time Definitive, Football Time Scrimmage Deluxe? No. They are tweaked and modified to include Canadian ball and reference Canadian ball. And there also has been a couple of subtle changes for me, because these will be the charts I use when I play all of my games on the channel that are full sims, so be aware of that. Of course, I will be playing at times Parallax Football, which will use the Parallax Football game. So if I ever play Big Country 2D20, my Big Country Football 2D20 game, then I'll use that. But most of my football is going to be Football Time in some iteration, and therefore when I play the full games, or if I just want to play the fourth quarter, sim the first 3 quarters, play out the fourth quarter, I want these charts readily available. And I needed to make a couple of tweaks to them for peace of mind. All right, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.